Well, this will be fun, maybe. It's my first weapon impact test, and you can see I've got 3 lined up here, but it's specifically to test the one on the right, which is the homemade shillelagh that I've shown you guys in a previous video. And it was someone on that video that recommended I give this a test run, so let's do it. Here's our target. Nice sturdy medicine ball. I've had this for a lot of years, as you can tell. And this turned out to be just perfect. It's heavy, it's dense, but it gets denser as you go into it. It's kind of soft on the outside, but it's got that tough leather exterior. And using it in a freestanding manner really worked well, because it was hard to hit through. I mean, I could feel it reverberating up my arm, the shock. But then it moves away from the point of impact, which a lot of striking targets, a lot of things that we could have used aren't going to do. So anyway, let's check it out. Here's my little corner. Created my little setup. Old piece of furniture that we haven't used for anything in a million years. It was in the garage. And yeah, so that thing's nice and tough. And here's our weapon of choice, which as a reminder is just a piece of driftwood that I found. Great size and shape, gets knotty at the end, and then I loaded it with about, 9 inches worth of BBs. And because of the way the head flares, that's actually the center of mass where the BBs are glued in place, even though it doesn't look like it. I joked about how amateurish this was, which it was, so I was also just curious, are the BBs going to come out like in one solid mass upon impact? Speaking of impact, I decided to try a straight punch first, just to get an idea of the resistance. And I really felt that, let me tell you. So, let's let a weapon do the work. This is a very stout piece of wood here. This is kind of a Nitambo single stick, baston, you name it, that I made for myself. Here we go. So that didn't have anywhere near the drive-through that the straight punch did, as you can imagine. So let's see if this, which is not technically a weapon, gives more. So it's a kid's baseball bat, really large, swelled head, presumably a lot more leverage. We'll give this a shot. And the first 2 clubs don't have the drive-through like we talked about, but they're delivering really hard whacks. I mean, I could absolutely feel it. But it's just a pleasant breeze compared to when I was using, only my actual arm. So now for the weapon that this is actually all about. There's a late 40s guy trying to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. So, just as a comparison here, my little homemade shillelagh is wide, but nowhere near as wide as that bat, right? And it's got a dense center, whereas the bat is hollow, so I like the different physics to all these weapons. The straight baton was the only perfectly balanced weapon. So, yeah, I love this thing. It's a great size, with the slightly top-heavy feel. It's just really fun to play with. After so many years of karate kobudo training with a 6-foot symmetrical staff, it's really fun to play with something like this instead. Here we go. And not only did it survive, but it had the biggest bounce back. That might be an accident, but it did. And then I decided, how about a swinging punch as opposed to a pushing, driving one, because that's a better test as a comp to the sticks. I feel like that, in a way, that got better results than any of the sticks, which is interesting, but it's much closer to my center of power, and it hurt my body way, way more than using any of the sticks. So here's this 3-part comparison where I was kind of showing how post-impact I ended up in basically the exact same spot every time. Thought that was interesting. I'm sure there's plenty in my form that can be critiqued, but not too bad. I think I was very consistent, if nothing else. And then just for completeness sake, I want to see where I ended up after the 2 punches as well. So definitely some surprises in store here. I did not expect a hook punch to perform as well, it would seem, as the sticks, but again, way, way rougher on your body, and there's no telling still the ultimate damage delivered, because your fist is not as hard as a piece of hardwood, and I think even the hook had some push-through that you're just not going to get with a lever like this. Angles might have been a big part of this too. I was hitting fairly straight, I thought, with all the cudgels, but it's just way easier to line up and fire off the punch. I also thought the metal bat was going to outperform the other cudgels, like, noticeably, and it didn't. I think my shillelagh won amongst these sticks. And there is my little homemade weapons and martial arts experiment for whatever it's worth. The free-floating, if you will, medicine ball, I think is a great target. Others should give it a shot. Thanks.